Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv Network podcast. This is a series of conversations aimed at building stronger connections throughout the improv community. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And we are your education team for the Improv Network. You can go to theimprovnetwork.org to check out all sorts of great resources and educational tools. We got blogs and interviews, and we have an improv FAQ page with these conversations cataloged, as well as mini lectures on improv topics. We got profiles. You can make yourself a profile.
So many profiles.
One profile for every day of the week.
Like when I meet new people, like, how many profiles you got? One? Oh, then you're not on a network, son. You got to come out in here and make some profiles.
That's how I vet all my new friends and acquaintances.
Yeah.
But
that's what I'm giving out for Christmas. Here's a profile. Enjoy.
Truly, though, you can make yourself an individual performer profile, profile for all your teams, for your theater, for your festival, for yourself as a teacher and a coach, and all that good stuff. So check out what the Improv Network has to offer for resources and profiles. We are very excited to have a team. Have we done we've done a duo before? I don't think we've done like a full improv team before on the show. So we're very excited to have an improv team with us today that has been performing together since they started in 2005, based in Austin, Texas, in the Hideout Theater. They do all sorts of narrative and genre-based shows in different formats. They have performed, I think I caught somewhere around 700 shows together before losing count. And they have a book out there in the improv world called Do It Now, Essays on Narrative Improv. We are very excited to welcome cast members from Parallelogramophonograph. The most syllables I've ever said in a row. Yeah. Please welcome Kareem and Roy and Casey and Valerie to the show.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome, y'all.
We are proud of our multi-syllabic absurd name.
It's been a problem for 16 years and counting.
Problem we created a long time ago.
It's a good problem to have. People aren't going to forget.
Oh my God.
It is. It's like a challenge, though. It makes you study the name in a way that makes you remember it. So, like, I think it is in a way a great tool for imprinting on people's minds.
Kareem, what's the slogan?
I know it. It's unforgettable, unrepeatable.
Yeah, unforgettable, unrepeatable.
But it took us like 4 or 5 years to like, oh, that's a thing we could say that applies to the art.
We don't really say it.
Just
that's
like
amazing.
our shows, unforgettable, unrepeatable.
And I should say that PGraph for short, to make it easier on anybody to chat about it or as we get through our conversation. So y'all do all sorts of different narrative. And like I said, you've been performing for some 15, 16 years. And I'm sure that your form and your show has gone through plenty of iterations. But could you start us off by just describing for the audience how you describe your show to people when they ask about it, at a meeting somebody at the bar? How do you describe your show to somebody that you're talking to?
You want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, when people ask me about it, and I usually just say we do improvised plays is the simplest way to describe it, and kind of people know what we're doing.
Yeah, 45 to 60 minute play without a script.
Okay, and then so I see on your website that you have all these different formats. do you go through like seasons of doing that stuff, or are those for, you know, if you do, you kind of, I'm sure, pick, you know, if you go to a festival or something like that, you just pick your favorite at the moment
The festival usually picks based on what photographs. Well, we give them options. Like we can do one of these 4 or 5 shows, and they kind of pick based on what'll fit well with either the theme of the festival or based on what other groups are doing. And so it's good to have those options so that they can kind of pick and choose, how they want to promote. When we started, so most of those shows and formats were developed in like the first 5 or 6 years of our existence as a troupe, primarily for marketing purposes, or no, not in part for marketing purposes, so that we can take a photo of a show and tell people what they're going to see, other than it's improv.
Well, we realized it was a perk, you know, like that became clear after we had put up we did a show called what's the after school
improv?
It was just called After School Improv.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
And it was just an improvised after school special. It was the very first like genre-y format we had ever done.
Yeah.
And that was Valerie's Valerie, I was thinking maybe turn your camera off. Is that possible on this, where you can turn your camera off but leave your audio on?
Yeah, I think so.
Like on Zoom. It might help.
There it is.
Okay, great.
Oh, she's gone though. we can probably we can still hear her though.
Valerie, can you talk?
Sure.
Okay, we're just double checking that you're can still be heard. What was I saying? Oh, so we did this show called Sorry, you're choppy, so it's like
can you hear me?
So Valerie, you're on a bit of a delay, and something sounds like someone's in the upside down.
Yeah. Was the audio not coming through?
The audio's coming through clear. You're on a delay though, I think. So we might have to just wait and see if it corrects itself.
How far are you from your house, Valerie?
You gotta wait for the delay.
Yeah, pause. I'll say in the break between here that for anybody tuning in, feel free to throw out any questions you might have for PGraph. We love to get engagement from people who are listening in. So feel free to throw out questions for the team. Heck, even throw out a question
10-minute drive.
Oh wow, that is quite a delay.
Quite the delay.
Yeah, that's a good 30-second delay. But okay, so Valerie's 10 minutes away from home.
Yeah. Cool. We'll get that sorted.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So while doing research, I saw a lot of your photos on the Instagram. I don't know why I said on Instagram. I've been hanging out with my parents too long. I saw you on Instagram and on the Facebook, and the genres do lead to like a lot of great photos and advertisements, because you're not one of those troupes that wear multicolored shirts and stand in an elevator like, here we are, you know, like that's really
we have as a joke.
Yeah,
we opened for ourselves once as a all short form Christian troupe from West Carolina. I think it was.
That was the Nutty Funsters.
The Nutty Funsters. Yeah. Anyway, it lends itself to I don't want to say easier marketing, but it at least gives people something to identify the show with, something to latch onto, something to pique their interest. That was the sort of superficial reason for doing it, or maybe the pleasant byproduct. The artistic reason was that we aspired to do more theatrical improv, and that meant reaching towards different theatrical genres or different story genres, different types, things that would challenge us and just force us to do something different or learn a new skill.
Yeah, it really.
I'm sorry. Was that the goal from the beginning, or is that something you guys just came up with like during your
pretty
run?
Immediately? No, it was pretty immediately that we wanted to.
I wish we had that list. It feels very like I've been doing a lot of meditation stuff in my life lately. And there's a thing called scripting where you like write out goals and then read them regularly and sort of help wish them into existence. And we actually had a list as PGraph very early on in our rehearsals of like stuff we wanted to do. And within a few years, we had hit every item on this bucket list.
And we had forgotten about the list, and we literally found it a few years later, and we were like, we did everything on this list. And it was stuff like that seemed completely absurd to us at the time. It was like travel internationally for improv, you know, have a weekly improv show, which we absolutely did, you know, come up with like 5 different show concepts. Yeah. I think the thing that really codified kind of our like early kind of strategy and show concept stuff was doing improvised French farce, which was an idea that Casey had that we didn't know anything about, but we soon embraced. And we realized it was very visually striking because after our initial run, we started using like full on Moliere, like white makeup with like really like broad, like red rosy cheeks and like completely absurd costumes. And we started getting accepted to festivals because they took one look at it and they were like, exactly like,
what the hell is that?
They were like, oh, it's not another group doing like in brightly colored shirts doing a format that is like the Armando with a twist, you know. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it made us stand out. And then
we really started we started breaking into more festivals at that point. And that's when we also started getting that was 2007 when we went to Providence and we were headlining. We started headlining festivals and I remember it felt pretty exciting in these big theaters and we were able to deliver. I remember not knowing if we could. And then the shows like going
like, oh, these are good.
It helped that we had a weekly show in Austin, so that was sort of helping us get sharp, stay sharp.
Yeah, that helped, and also, I mean, just the sort of ethos was we were constantly trying to improve and trying to get better, and even if we got a critique or a negative, seemingly negative comment or a rejection from a festival, we would kind of look at what the rejection was and kind of unpack it. And there were a couple of those moments. Like we applied for a festival, and Sean Landry was, I don't remember which festival it was, but she basically said, I wish your video had you in costume the way your promo photo did. And we're like, oh crap, okay, yeah, of course we should. We should do that. And they're like,
we thought we need the narrative to be good. Like it needs to be a show that ends well. But actually, the first 10 minutes is really all that matters. For submission video.
So what's the scheduling like for a troupe like yours? Do you rehearse every week, or when you set a goal like, oh, this is the genre we're doing for this season, we're going to focus on that until show starts? Or
so we're like 16 we're like 17. Is it 17 years in? Is it? No, it's 16 years
16 years in. Yeah.
So we're 16 years in as a troupe, which is pretty long. And early on, like I'd say the first 10 years, we did meet weekly and we would rehearse. And then when we had a specific format, we would rehearse that. But as we
6 weeks or so.
Yeah, we would rehearse for like a month or two weekly leading up to the show premiering. And then at some point we realized we were burning a lot of material in rehearsal and we stopped rehearsing because it didn't seem to serve the show anymore. And then we were just meeting weekly to like touch base and like talk about business. But then all of our lives started to boil over, and really honestly just trying to keep it going as a weekly show became like a challenge. And that was like enough to like just make that the thing is like commitment. And then like it's like at this point our hive mind is so strong that like we really just need a quick powwow and then we lock in the show. And that's so weird to say because we were so
I mean it's true. Like for the first 5 or 6 years we needed to rely on ourselves as a group to generate new improv ideas or show concepts to stretch ourselves. So we were hungry for it. We wanted to get better. We wanted to build our improv tool belt. And then as we became involved in the Hideout more, or more shows similar to how we approach things started happening around town, we were able to, as individuals, or sometimes we would all be cast in the same show that wasn't a PGraph show, but we'd kind of be able to scratch that new genre, new thing itch elsewhere, often using the tools and skills that we'd built up years before already. So meeting weekly, it's not really a thing that happens anymore because we're all so busy. But if and when we have a new show concept or show format, even though they happen less frequently than they used to, we will definitely work it up for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something.
Yeah, so our advice is you should rehearse weekly for the first 10 years.
First 10 years.
And then you're off the
Then
hook
assess.
and you can do what you want.
Yeah, well, really, I mean, that's a big question for me. As soon as I saw just how long y'all had been performing together, we do talk a lot on here about rehearsal culture and how difficult it is to even get people together for the first 6 months of a team, let alone 10 years. And do you have any? Obviously, it's not going to be every team that lasts for 10 years and more, but for teams that are trying to stick to a regimen and build structure and off stage, what were some of the things that you really held to or helped you accomplish that?
I mean, I don't know if writing those goals. I mean, we wrote those goals down just to kind of get our thoughts out, but
this is the list that you blew through.
Yeah, way back when.
Okay, yeah.
But it kind of spoke to the fact that we collectively had the same goals in mind for the group from a very early point. We all were roughly at the same improv development stage, and got to we wanted to develop together as a troupe and be this ensemble. And I think starting out by having those similar goals, I don't know if there's another word, but having those similar goals in mind just kind of gave us that North Star that we were always striving towards, which sometimes meant beating ourselves up too much when a show didn't go well, but it also meant being committed to the work, being committed to doing the improv and making the improv better. I remember early on we had a rule that we would allow ourselves to skip rehearsal if we had 3 shows in a week. Remember that rule?
Yeah.
If PGraph we were like, you know what? We've seen each other enough, or we've done the work enough. We can skip rehearsal this week.
Our
and it came up
families
enough
miss
that
we'll go have dinner with them.
Yeah, no, it's true. Over the years, I've been asked to coach various groups, either as a one-off or an ongoing basis. And the very first thing I ask them when we have our first rehearsal together is, what are your goals as a group? And I almost never have gotten an answer.
Right.
Not even a satisfactory answer, any answer.
Or an answer, because hey, we just want to have fun is an answer. If you're all having that answer, then great. Then you're here for the same reason. Sweet.
I would have them all at the beginning of a rehearsal process. If they asked me to come in, I'm like, you're gonna sit down for the first 15 minutes and write down a bullet list each, and then compare. Because we were so serious. I mean, we're still kind of serious, but we were very serious when we started with our different rules of attendance, and all of our vacation time went to traveling to festivals.
There was a lot of 3-day weekends throughout the year to get to festivals and perform once and then come home. Yeah, it's that was an unhealthy level of dedication and commitment to this very stupid thing is how you succeed.
I mean, you really have to love it a lot to do what you are talking about doing as a group, that's going to look and feel overboard a lot of the time. But it takes some obsession, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's really paid off, not just for the group, but I'd feel I think for all of us on a personal level, having put in that much time doing improv and doing narrative improv. I mean, it's a game changer for acting on stage, on screen, for writing, which I didn't realize at the time at all. I was just I love this improv thing, and we have a really great group mind. I remember
Well, because it wasn't only improv, like, you know, outside of rehearsal, or maybe, you know, in rehearsal process, or like outside of rehearsal improv time, like we would devour books on story and story structure and narrative, not to like regurgitate it on stage, but just to like wrap our heads around different ways of approaching narrative, so that we could attempt to do it on an improv stage, or like, you know, have that sort of touchstone. So like, you know, we spent so much time like being absolute dorks. It's just like everything.
We were not, we weren't satisfied with the books out about improvised narrative. And we basically realized if our goal was to perform various kinds of improvised plays on stage, and we'd have to create our own system, or you know, go from the ground up. And so that's what we did, and it took us.
Well, let me ask you this. Are there any skill sets that you discovered were helpful that you didn't know that you would need? Because it makes sense that you would study, you know, scene structure, story structure, if you wanted to be narrative oriented. But is there like, oh, tap dancing? Who knew? You know, like,
there are some stupid ones. Certainly ones, and this kind of starts to peek into how we develop things. I don't remember how we first did it, but when we're doing a genre or dissecting a genre, deconstructing it to figure out what we need to do, we'll see like, are there any special skills involved in staging this thing? Like we tried to approximate like courtly Victorian dancing, or I guess Jane Austen sort of dancing in a show, which was, you know, not dancing, but it was so stupid, but like it worked. And then I've seen movies where I'm like, they're doing what we were doing. You know, we had to learn how to pretend to ride a horse, or like bounce in a car for a noir show or a Western. Like there are little things that get picked up. And then for more like performance, like, or not performance, but like sort of more complicated performance skills, like sometimes we will pick genres or shows to address something we knew we were very bad at. Like we are bad at playing villains in shows, even when a narrative needs a villain, and we know that narratives have villains. We are bad at doing that. All right, let's make a show where we have to play objectively bad people on stage, and to like get that in our bones. And now whenever there's a show that needs a villain, we're just like, great. We just sort of put that memory on and just like do the thing. You know?
No, I would say though that coming into it, something that helped us outside of the work we were doing in the troupe to develop our skills, the outside skills we brought in, I think all of us had an interest in theatricality, and had come in with a love of performance to varying degrees. I had done some kind of performance, you know, whether it was street performance or like I don't know what you would call this thing that Kareem and Roy did before PGraph, like
jackassery,
like prank, like university prank performance. But it wasn't. It was not, I don't know that seems fair, because some of it was quite innocent.
Gentle pranking.
Pranking. A dusting of pranking.
If you've ever heard of No Pants Day, that was something that the university group they were in started, which then became like an international thing that they just stopped claiming because it was weird. It got, you know, something called No Pants Day can get weird. So at some point you just attach an involvement with it, and then it rides off into the sunset pantsless.
I mean, Jesus, what a vision. So I mean, we as a group, collectively and individually, we had a healthy amount of pretension to us, I believe, which is often the case with young artists. I think you aspire for lofty things, and improv. No one knew what improv. Not no one, but a lot of people commonly didn't know what improv was. So we were, you know, they thought, oh, you're just doing stand up, you're doing yuck-em-ups, blah, blah, blah. So like, no, it's theater. And, you know, we overdid it for sure, both externally and internally. But because of that, we would like, okay, let's go out and see plays just as a troupe. Let's go see plays and talk about the thing we saw. Let's read a bunch of plays. Let's just like pull from this, you know, tradition of theater that improv is very much a part of, that for some reason, you know, in the early 2000s, people were refusing to accept.
Yeah.
Stubbornness.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of stubbornness.
Yeah, we got it. We picked up some pretty strong influences early on too. I think just Dave Rosowski saying that all improvisers are actors, was
huge.
something that resonated with us. It was like, yeah, duh, of course, but like that really spoke to how we were already feeling and gave us permission to act on stage.
We were really lucky to develop in Austin as well, because there wasn't as much of a you have to do improv this way ethos here. So we really got to decide what it meant for us to get on a stage without a script.
Casey, just in case you didn't see my comment, your video is frozen, but your audio is amazing.
Okay, I turned off Wi-Fi on my phone and stuff, and to close some tabs.
Okay.
But if the audio's great, then
And it froze on a really good photo of you. So you look. The chat is saying that your hair looks amazing.
Yeah.
We got your new headshot. There we go.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to let you know in case you didn't know.
Thank you.
In case you do any visual demonstrations.
That's right.
Yeah.
But Casey's right. Like, we were able to forge our own destiny because there wasn't an expectation of what was expected of an improv troupe. So we took inspiration that resonated with us and had the freedom to do what we wanted with it, which was great. And Kareem talked about us doing like 3 shows a week early on. And part of that is it was just literally the Austin improv community was run as a collective then. And there were a lot of really enthusiastic people and a lot of stage time, but not really. It wasn't being like run top down. It was basically being run by the people that were interested in doing it. And so the schedule would get put out and then troops would drop out. And like literally on the message board, this is pre-Facebook, they would say like, a spot open, who wants it? And we'd be like, we do. So we often wouldn't be scheduled at all for a week, and we would wind up doing 3 shows, and then canceling.
We were hungry. We were hungry for stage time. We wanted to get the reps in and get better. And
we would do any dumb show that anybody said.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah, no, we really would. Like, we performed at parks and bars and did things that now we would be like, we would turn it down. But then it was grab as much as we could.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a very lucky combination of things. And again, I think people really get frustrated about when troops don't catch fire or like take off the way that you want them to, or not everybody has the same goals and everything. But it really does take not only a lot of like intention, but a lot of lucky combinations of.
But like you're saying, it depends on what the goals are. The concept of the troop taking off or being successful didn't exist. Our metric for success was, is the improv better than it was last week or last month? Great. And that was it. Improv troops, there's no success for an improv troupe as an improv troupe. It's so like there's so like
the next book.
It depends on what.
Well, for this,
it depends on how you define success, right? But traditional like economic or scalable success, like there's like 3 improv troupes that are able to sort of make a living doing that thing, So you just have to find the reason you're doing it and love it together.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Valerie, welcome back. Can we hear you? Oh, awesome.
Yay.
Yes.
Good.
Sound
no
great?
delay.
You're great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we do have a couple questions from the comment gallery here. Kurt, hey, Kurt, asks, are there any best practices for rehearsals that work for you? I know we talked about just generally scheduling and getting that regiment down, but once you're in a rehearsal, do you have some like go-to golden rules for yourselves, or that you offer to other groups?
I would say I remember that sometimes it can get tricky to actually get started and do it. Like people will just talk shop to avoid doing the improv.
That's true.
And I think like one thing that was working for us for a while was having a different person lead each rehearsal in the group.
Yeah.
We never
because we don't have a director or a coach.
We never did a coach or a director model, which I think you know, there were challenges with that and learning to give each other notes, which took many years.
Yeah.
And sometimes learning to not give notes and just like let things be, which I wish maybe we had been told, but I'm such a people pleaser that I am really glad we didn't have a coach or a director, because I think I would have performed to please the coach instead of to find my own.
And I think we knew that. Like we may not have been able to articulate it, but we kind of had that intuitive sense of like, I don't want to be doing what someone else thinks we should be doing. We want to figure out what it is we want to do.
Yeah,
I do think it's.
Go ahead, Valerie.
I do think it's really important to be honest in feedback, not about like, here's my vision and why I think you're not doing what's right. But like, if something doesn't feel good to you, it is really important to be able to give the feedback of like, hey, I felt like I felt ignored in that scene, or I felt, you know, like I really had something and you weren't listening to me, or, you know, if you felt something personal, I think it's really important to be able to talk about that.
And then setting those boundaries as a group and like establishing what that communication is, so it doesn't seem like it's coming out of nowhere that you're suddenly saying how you feel, you know? Like, that's pretty huge. And it took us a while. It took us a while to awkwardly stumble through figuring out that is a way, at least for us, to work.
Yeah.
Another big thing, kind of not the opposite of that, but I think together with that is, for the most part, I think most notes, if you're directing yourself, you're kind of noting each other. Most notes can be given in frame in like context of we are doing this, rather than like, you messed up my scene. You know, it's like, no, we aren't good at establishing the protagonist. We should all work on doing that now. You know, it's like, because usually hopefully everyone feels roughly the same about whether something was successful or not. And if you can at least get on that page, then you can start talking about like, how do we make that show better? How do we make that thing better?
Yeah, I'd say don't give notes right after a show, and write them down if you must, and then bring that to rehearsal.
It's really raw right after a show.
Yeah, it's not a good time. It's like it's you want to enjoy the vibes post show, unless something went really off the rails and you have to have like a crowded little powwow.
Right. But even that takes a certain level of experience to be able to divorce yourself from what just happened. Like, it took us years to be able to go like, show's done, and now we can be like, that was all right, yeah, and cool. That's
no, not me. I'm still too sensitive. And it's okay. Everybody has different levels, you know, of their little heartstrings and how they work. And sometimes it's like you can pour yourself into a show that is still not working, and it's so hard to do that, especially when you're doing a narrative and it's like a 60-minute long show. And then to come out of that, and if your troop mate is immediately like, oh, that sucked, you can feel it's so disheartening, and it doesn't help me. So like, this was a thing too that the Hideout kind of realized. There used to be more of a model, I think, of directors giving notes before the cast was released, and I'm so glad that changed.
We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because I think you should just be able to. Everyone can take their own experience away from what happened, and then let's compare notes later. And also don't tell other people in your troop that it. If they're like, wow, that was great. No, it wasn't. It seems so obvious, but it happens because in the moment you're like, I need somebody to confirm my reality. It's very important to me I be confirmed. It's like learning tact. I mean, some people never learn tact, but it'd be great to try.
Yeah, I'd say the only exception is if somebody did something that was really like unsafe or out of bounds. That does need to be addressed immediately. But if it's just like, you know, in terms of the quality of the show, that can obviously wait.
Yeah, that, man, I'm really glad that we unpacked that point a lot, because I think that it's one of those subtopics of the conversation of like working as a team, where, you know, I think most improvisers generally, or teachers and coaches would be like, you should probably have a director or a coach. Generally. But the truth is, it's not always an option. Sometimes it's really difficult to make it happen for any number of reasons, consistency, or, you know, and also sometimes although it may be, more rare, sometimes it's not the best scenario for a group, the best way to make the group its full potential.
But we would also bring in outside people once in a while, pretty rarely, but once in a while we'd be like, okay, we need someone who's very good at this thing. We would benefit to basically organize a mini workshop for ourselves in rehearsal time, like bring someone in, have them run us through some stuff that, like, it's great to be able to start to identify where your shortcomings are individually and collectively, and just know there are resources to pull. And I would say, like, it's weird, like, I'm not advocating like no one should have a director, no one should have a coach. Like, it worked for us. I think we lasted as long as we have because of and despite the fact that we were self-directed.
I've gone back and forth on it over the years about whether that was the right call or not, because honestly it was kind of blind luck that we survived our first like 3 years without someone in charge. I mean, like, it was definitely touch and go every once in a while, but I'm grateful in the long run that we didn't, because I don't think we would have developed the voice we have or the vision we had. And I'm the same way as Casey, where like I would have with a coach in the room, I would, despite their intentions, I would have been playing to please them. Rather than ourselves. And that's on me, not on that hypothetical coach.
I think it's fine though to recognize how you are and to work with it, and not say I have to be like somebody else.
Yeah. This, I don't know how useful of a question this is, but I'm just curious if y'all would have any advice or like on for a group, if they're wondering, like, are we going to be at our best potential with a coach or self-directed? How does a team self-evaluate to even know which route to go?
That's a great question.
I'd say try it out. I mean, like anything, you can think about it, but you never know until you actually try it on.
Yeah.
So you could like contract somebody to coach you for a month or 2 months, or depending on how often you perform, and then like make that very clear, like that the contract has a start and an end date and a potential to, like, let them know everyone should be in on that, and then have a couple months where you self-facilitate.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I would say even if you're going to have a coach or director, make sure that the driving force behind the group is the members of your group rather than that coach or director. Because honestly, like, some of the groups that I have coached, when I stopped coaching them, they also stopped being a group. And like they thought they were going to keep going, and a month went by and it was like they dissolved, and it was, I think, because they just weren't on the same page together as a group.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're giving marriage advice.
Yeah.
For 10 years. Oh.
It is like, it is like a marriage. Roy and I were married.
Yeah.
And now we're divorced, and the troop has survived. So
that's true.
I'd say that.
Yeah, we were married for 8 years.
We don't have to.
We were married for 8 years.
That's amazing.
We don't.
But Valerie, did you have something to add on to the?
Oh, it's good. I guess what we're saying is every group should be self-directed, in the sense that they should have their own idea about what they want as a group, even if they do have a coach.
Yes.
Who helps them get there. Yeah.
Yes.
I did. Yeah.
I think early on, my concept of a troop I think we never really embraced the word coach the way we never embraced the word team. So the idea of a troop having a director is like, what? But a director is the person who makes the vision happen. Like, that's us. I don't want someone else telling me what they want me to be doing for them. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why am I going to be doing that for 15 years?
That's a long time to maintain for one person to maintain a vision.
Yeah.
I think, I feel like we have to recognize, I was 18 when we started PGraph, and I think there's a feeling of like, you have to realize that you're all, in most cases, consenting adults. And you do not want to put a patriarchal or matriarchal or parent role on somebody else, but take responsibility for your own vision, inspiration, and hopes and goals. And I think you do it at an individual level, and you do it at a group level. Why do it otherwise? Unless you're just like, hey, we're just going to mess around few times.
Or it's like you want to be a troupe. You kind of have this idea of being a troupe for a year to all individually and collectively kind of get better at improv. But if you're not trying to form an ensemble for the long haul, whatever that is in the improv world, then that might be that might be a perfectly valid.
I think expectations are so important. And it's nice to outline those and sign off on them as a group. Yeah. That'll just make also just like the day to day or week to week easier.
I love the idea of just having an end date to some things too. Is just like take it in finite chunks. I suppose even like the idea of having like a one-off workshop and sort of taking class together as a group. You could also do for if you were going to do a very particular genre and you wanted to work with a director for a season or like a 6-month year-long thing, then you could do that too. But just knowing that like any stretch of time doesn't have to be like indefinite, and then to further the relationship analogy is like then it does feel like a breakup if you like part with a coach or a director, and it's just like
kind of like long-term collaboration advice that I think the world is slowly waking up to. It's just like we should say like you need to re-up, actively be a part of the thing again rather than.
And honestly, that sort of lesson has helped inform like what we do. We're at the Hideout Theater, which is like we tend to gravitate towards making shows happen rather than like house troops or anything like that, is because they have has a start, middle, and end date, and then the show is over. You might perform with a lot of those same people again in a different combination, but everyone knows what they're getting into and when it's over. And that's why I always get mad as artistic director when the shows become troops afterwards.
Roy and I get unreasonably not upset, like irked when they're like, we're going to keep going. I'm like, oh, but this worked so well because you were doing it for 3 months and now you're done.
And then seeing what becomes of them afterwards. But I think all this is kind of each other. It's all circling around like make sure your group is on the same page before you bring other people in, and then know exactly why you're bringing them in and probably for how long. One of our favorite like genres and collaborations or show concepts was working with a local playwright, Steve Moore in Austin. And he had we had a show concept we developed with him, but he was the director, and we did a run of shows, and it was fantastic. And it was unlike something we would have done by ourselves.
And then we went and we did some more collaborations with him. We did a series of text message plays. Plays that you receive on your phone entirely through text from different characters.
We're like 5-6 years ahead of the curve on that one.
I know. We realized like it would have been cool to bring that back during the height of COVID, but whatever. He had gone on to other stuff. He went off and continued his writing practice in a completely different direction. So we just kind of met up for a while and parted ways.
And speaking of the different show styles, Sue has a question. Hi, Sue. Is there one show or parts of shows that really stand out for their excellence that you look back at being your best work? If so, can you share that with us and why you thought it was your best?
Best is so hard. Best or favorite is always so hard. I think when we're doing the shows, a lot of them had moments we were very proud of that then kind of went into our improv muscle memory. Like I think again, not best or favorite, but like there were some remarkable things we did in our very, very bleak sci-fi show that was the least audience pleasing show concept we probably ever did. Like just broadly, like this was not made to make audiences happy, but like, art isn't necessarily supposed to make you happy, but there were moments of like transcendent surreal beauty in that show that were incredible. And I don't know.
It was like we had to we had to do some shows that were miscalculated in the amount of drama in order to learn as a group that all shows need a little bit of like bitter and sweet. I think that was huge for us in now like the past 5 years where we often just do a play from nothing, and we're trying to give ourselves different ways to get suggestions where we could be wildly inspired in different directions without having to work up a format.
Can you give an example of that?
Of
a unique suggestion you might get to inspire you.
Well, we were for a long time we have this book of play titles, and we would have audience member grab the book and read out the play titles, and then each of us would pitch a quick synopsis of what that play title could be, and the audience would vote on their favorite, and we would do it. And we did such wildly different shows. We also did stuff where we would have a bag of random books and literature, and when we had an opening group, we would, before the opening group played, we would have the audience select a book out of the bag, and then we'd spend 20 or 30 minutes while the opening group was performing, quickly poring over that one.
So I'm realizing this as you're talking, Casey. It's like we started out for the first 5 years studying genres and playwrights for like 2 months to come up with a format that we'd run for 2 months. And then we went to, let's pick a random book so we could study it for 30 minutes. And then it became, let's pitch you something in 2 sentences. So soon we're just going to get up, say one word, take their money. And
what we've been doing lately, because we didn't want to, we just got, after doing the thing for many years, we get the audience.
The skills just compound, you know? Like we're able to do one thing because of the thing we did 5 years ago. Valerie and Roy, do you have favorite shows or
I do have a favorite. I'll circle back around on show wise.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, and I don't know how much y'all talked about this while I was driving home, but when we were talking about why we developed the different formats and genres, not only for the marketing, but to develop certain skills. And I feel really proud of when we developed a format and we could really plumb the depths of what that format had to offer us. And that's what I feel really proud of doing villainy and really discovering how dark and how deep we could go, and then adding that to our tool belt, or doing screwball comedy and developing how cute and sweet and romantic could we go, but also how silly and wacky could we get with the characters, and how much of a group hubbub could we create with only 4 people on stage. And then, so I feel really proud of being able to extend ourselves, with Grimm, how just weird can we get with these German folk tales, and just really go all in on whatever we're doing, and then be able to take that level of commitment into a open-ended show.
Right.
And know that then whatever show we're doing, our shows aren't all going to look the same. That we're going to be able to pick a tone or pick a mood in whatever show we do and say, oh, okay, I get a feel of what the show is going to be. So let's go really far into that style.
Nice.
Yeah. Extreme versatility was really the name of the game.
And a plug-in, right?
Yeah.
As a actor on stage improvising, as a group writing the story, I think tone became so important to us, and we really realized that. And I think for me, some favorite things. I mean, our improvised French farce is a show that we've taken around the world, and
I was thinking of that too.
And we also kept changing the way we got suggestions for that show, because we would get bored, and even the kind of the format of the show itself, and realizing audiences seem to want this show. It's really flashy, but we're getting bored. So let's just scrap the way that we're doing it and just reinvent the show again. No one knows what it is supposed to be. It has to be fun for us. And we have to feel like we are stretching. I think I know improvisers who are so content, and that's totally cool, to do the same sort of format over and over again. And it's actually I say it is my own thing, I've realized, and we just all happen to sort of have this
perpetual dissatisfaction
where we get so bored. And I'm learning that's a thing for me in all the other areas of artistry in my life, and it's fine. And it's just part of who I am. But that was the thing that we also collectively shared, was we could only do one thing. We could only do a thing for 2 months, because after that we had to move on, because we would get sick of we did it.
Yeah, and we kind of very early on adopted as part of our ethos that improv is at its best when it's on the edge of risk and failure. And like we've seen some very, very astonishingly good improvisers do extremely safe and boring shows. And that was as big of a lesson for us as them doing an incredible show. And it's funny, if you follow the trajectory of the types of shows we've done in our aesthetic, it looks a little strange because there's this spot at which we got technically good at improv narrative, and our shows became like very specific genres and theatrical. And then we've kind of gone past that and looped back around into this like looser, more playful, but still super theatrical style, where things will technically be sloppier, but I think that level of like joy and connection is stronger than it was before.
Yeah.
And that's
Casey, you mentioning French farce reminds me. So, again, trying to say like favorite show or favorite thing, like it's impossible. But one of the things I'm most proud of with regards to farce is, so we I say toured, but we traveled to Australia to do like 2.5 weeks of shows and workshops in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. And we were in a theater. We had a theater in Melbourne for a week. So we were doing 5 shows in a row at this theater, which is like a big deal. It's a big deal for us. Like we have like, a run of 5 shows in another country in a downtown theater. Incredible. First night, so we're doing French farce the whole time, all 5 shows. The first night the show happened and we left the stage and we're like, that felt okay, but I don't know. There was something about this is feeling a little stale. We got to do this for 4 more nights in this room. So we like completely changed how we would get our inspiration and get the suggestion, and change the opening of the show to give ourselves the spark that we knew would like be enough to like set us going. And the next 4 nights, not that first night wasn't bad. It was just like something's off. And the next 4 nights were fabulous and wonderful. And it could have been very easy for us to say, well, but we're here for 4 more nights, and it's a big deal that we're in this theater. We can't mess with what we said we would do. It's like we still did the show, but we found a way to keep ourselves inspired. And I think that's overall the thing that I'm most proud of, is like we are continually trying to keep ourselves inspired, because if we're not, it's gonna be boring work.
There's a bit of like improv wisdom that Keith Johnstone threw down early on when we were getting started too, which was he said like improvisers should ask for a suggestion that inspires them, but they're all too scared to do that. And of course that was his way of like challenging, and we took the bait very hardcore. And so that we're always on the lookout for trying to get a start to the show that will really spark us and start us off from inspiration. It's like, you could make any suggestion work, but if we can figure out a way that like we hit the ground running, it makes everything so much easier.
I always get really tickled whenever I hear anybody be like, oh, I didn't know improv could be whatever it is. Like I didn't know you were allowed to choose a suggestion or change your format.
That was kind of our sinister joy. We're like, yes, you can.
It's still happening too. That's the crazy thing, is it hasn't stopped.
It's like
that feedback.
Improv can be whatever you want it to be, y'all. It's like nobody's gonna come and take away your improv card. Kick you out of the union. Like,
I mean, they might kick you out of their theater, but it's
but
their
just
loss.
go start another theater. It's whatever.
Into venue, just
or do it in the park.
Well, it's very clear that you as a troupe have made improv everything you want it to be. I honestly, I was selfishly hoping that somebody would say that the Reverend Goodman's Cure All Elixir Traveling Review
that is
was
a
their
good
favorite
one. It is a really
oh
good
man,
one.
that's another good example. So it came out of Kareem was basically like threatening. No, he was wanting to do a solo Tom Waits inspired show, and we were like, you're not gonna do that. Let's just do it with the 4 of us. And then the original thought was that it would be a musical, like traveling medicine show, set somewhere between like 1890 and 1910, which is our sweet spot as a troupe.
No,
And
our sweet spot goes up to 1950.
That's true. It does. Yeah. It's still a pretty narrow window.
1850s,
But
1950s.
But we first started working up the show and we realized that like our musical improv chops were not up to snuff. Like we just couldn't hang
for what we thought the show was supposed to be.
For what we thought the show was supposed to be. So we ditched the musical component for the first run of the show. And then we circled back on it a few years later and we'd all gotten musical improv practice and we turned the show into what we originally conceived it to be. So that was another indication of like we adapted to the circumstances. We had a clear vision of what we wanted out of the show, and we were willing to be flexible to do the show that at the quality level we wanted to do.
We need to do that show again. We'd be so much better at it now.
Yeah, right.
Oh my god!
I gotta find my top hat. I can't find my top hat.
We can do new costumes. Don't worry.
I love that idea too, that nothing is wasted, because it reminds me too of speaking of like our Grimm's fairy tale show. That actually, we had the idea that we wanted to do a magical realism show, and we were playing around with it, and we couldn't quite figure out how to make it work. But the work we did with that led into our Grimm's fairy tale show.
Totally.
And I think later it all came around full circle when we did the show with Steve Moore, which was like a Murakami inspired show. And so that is kind of how we ended up making the magical realism work.
Yeah, like 10 years, 8 years later or something.
And also, and it's just like nothing is wasted. Like everything you try will teach you something, even if it doesn't turn out the way you imagined it would.
Hold on tightly, let go lightly.
For sure, yeah. We started working up Grimm's fairy tale and we were like, this feels weird and random and childish, and we almost ditched it until we figured out a frame for the show that made it work for us. So
and then said, wait, this is weird and random and childish.
We love it.
Yes, weird, random.
So the show became partly about the storytellers in addition to the stories they were telling, and that made it work for us. So staying flexible and, honest about what you want out of the show.
Yeah, well, I can't tell you how much I love everything I'm hearing from all of you about challenging yourself, keeping yourself inspired, being flexible, and all the things you offered up about being self-directed and what it takes to stick together for as long as you have and keep the spark, keeping you inspired as much as, people love your show. You got to love your show too. So we really, really appreciate you being on and talking. I know I'm sparked and inspired about the conversation. So I hope everyone who tuned in is as well. We're going to drop a link because I don't think we did earlier in the comments here for your book. Do It Now, Essays on Narrative Improv. And before we let you go, is there anything else you want to plug? What are shows like for you these days? Are you back to regular shows, or how does it look?
So PGraph has a weekly show on Thursdays at the Hideout in person. So that's more or less on track to be happening every week with a couple changes because of holidays. But we're doing that, and we're also, if anyone's out there running a festival, we are eager to travel again. It's been too damn long. But it's time for us to hit the road and get stupid on someone else's stage.
I guess for a festival, or if a theater has the ability to bring a group out, we usually will teach and perform over an extended weekend. So get us before we don't want to do it anymore.
We have a 2-day 12-hour narrative intensive that we haven't taught in a while, but we've taught it in 13 different cities, I think, something like that. Wow. And it's basically us reverse engineering our process on narrative improv and then teaching it to whoever wants to learn it.
Look, once you learn this one weird tip, it'll unlock improv for you.
I'll tell it to you right now. It's just slow down your beginnings. That's it.
Stop it ever.
We're doing these games. Stop joking.
Well, thanks again so much for joining PGraph, and honored to have you as our first team guest, troop guest, I should say, on the show. And thanks
I
everyone
wish we had
for
another hour.
Yeah,
I know.
No, me too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Started.
I'll go. I'm not
Come
doing
back.
anything.
I know, right? Me neither.
Please do. We'd love to have you.
We'll have you back sometime soon. We'll because with as long as you've been together and as much as you've done, there's so much more that we could cover in the conversation. So thanks again. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Thanks for the great questions. And for me and Bob and the Improv Network, make sure you go to theimprovnetwork.org to check out all of our great resources. Remember that we are not only live streaming on Facebook on the Improv Network and Improv FAQ on YouTube, we are also an audio-only podcast available wherever podcasts are found. So catch up on any episodes you couldn't tune in for live in the podcast medium. Thanks, y'all. And we will catch you next time on the Improv Network podcast.
Bye.